When people talk about modern day outlaw legends, few names carry the same weight as Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Loera, better known as El Chapo. His story isn't a single rise and fall, it's a lattice of a poverty, ambition, blood, and power that stretches across continent and decades. This episode unpacks how a boy from the hills of Sinaloa became the head of the world's most infamous drug cartel, how his empire ran on a business model as sophisticated as any multinational, and why his eventual capture mattered far beyond Mexico. So let's start from the roots in the Sierra. El Chapo was born in 1957 in La Tuna, a tiny village tucked in the rugged Sierra Madre mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico. This region is poor, remote, and famous for one thing above all else: fertile ground for opium, poppy, and marijuana. Guzman grew up in a wooden shack with dirt floors. His father, by most accounts, combined subsistence farming with poppy cultivation, not glamorous crime, but a survival tactic. As a kid, Guzman sold oranges on the street to supplement the family income and dropped out of school in third grade. Those mountains shaped him. Geography in Sinaloa meant isolation from government oversight, but proximity to the Pacific coast and hidden airstrips that could move contraband. In the 1970s, when heroin and marijuana demand in the US surged, the area's drug network expanded, and young men like Guzman saw a ladder out of poverty. That latter, however, demanded loyalty and a taste for violence. Early climb through narco ranks. Guzman began as a low-level operative in the organization of Hector El Guerra Palma and later under Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, known as the Godfather of Mexican drug trafficking. Guzman's job at first was logistical, coordinating shipments, supervising airstrips, and making sure loads of marijuana and cocaine departed out on time. But his reputation for being both ruthless and extremely efficient caught the eye of his bosses. By the mid 80s, he'd earned the nickname El Chapo, Spanish for shorty, because of his short stature around 5'6", and had become a trusted lieutenant. This period was the transition point from loosely organized smuggling to corporate style cartels, when Gallardo's empire fractured after his 1988 arrest. Guzman and his allies built the Sinaloa cartel out of the pieces. It was a classic power vacuum moment, and multiple factions, old loyalties, fraying, and whoever moved fastest to control routes would dominate the next decade. Guzman moved faster than anyone. The Sinaloa business model. The Sinaloa cartel under Guzman did more than move drugs. It engineered a logistics revolution. Traditional Mexican traffickers were middlemen for Colombian cocaine producers. Guzman flipped that model, negotiating directly with Colombian suppliers, building his own distribution pipelines into the United States. He diversified cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and other drugs. He paid pilots, built secret tunnels under the US Mexico border, and bribed officials at every level. What distinguished him from rivals was not only scale but vertical integration. from production to transportation to wholesale distribution, Guzman minimized middlemen and maximized margins, essentially acting as a CEO who happened to deploy hitmen instead of like lawyers. This structure made the Sinaloa cartel the world's most powerful drug trafficking organization by the late 1990s. First arrest and the luxury prison. In 1993, after the assassination of Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo in Guadalajara, a killing authorities pinned on Guzman's gunmen, the Mexican government intensified its hunt. That same year, Guzman was arrested in Guatemala and extradited to Mexico, where he was sent to a maximum security prison. But maximum security in Mexico in the 1990s was negotiable. Guzman maintained control over his empire from inside using bribed guards, cell phones, and steady flow of visitors. The setup resembled the corrupt corporate headquarters more than a prison. Guzman reportedly enjoyed private food, conjugal visits, and even parties. This period also demonstrated one of the key lessons of his life. Money buys time and influence, but not immunity forever. So, the next chapter in his life, the 2001 escape. After 8 years behind bars, Guzman escaped from Puente Grande prison in 2001. Accounts vary. The official version claims he slipped out hidden in a laundry cart. Others say guards simply opened the door. Either way, the message was clear. The state could not contain him. He emerged into a new era of cartel wars, now competing with Zetas and the Juarez cartel. His escape elevated his myth to something like a folk anti hero, a Mexican Robin Hood figure for some, a blood soaked criminal to others. Okay, the next chapter about expansion and brutality from 2001 to 2014. The Sinaloa cartel expanded aggressively. Guzman's organization fought turf wars with rivals, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths in Mexico's drug conflict. Yet at the same time, Sinaloa established the most efficient supply chain of narcotics in the United States in history. DEA officials estimated that at its peak, Guzman was moving multi tons of cocaine per month. His tactics combine old school violence with modern business logic, bribing cops, recruiting chemists to boost meth production, leveraging global shipping routes. He even pioneered the use of semi submersible vessels to move cocaine from Colombia. Next chapter about capture, escape, and capture again. In February 2014, Mexican Marines working with the US intelligence captured Guzman in a Mazatlan without firing a shot. This was a high profile victory for President Enrique Peña Nieto's government, yet the legend of Guzman's escapes was not over. In July 2015, he escaped again, this time through a mile-long tunnel dug into his prison cell's shower area, complete with lighting, ventilation, and a motorcycle on rails for quick exit. This escape was so audacious, it embarrassed Mexico's government and became global news. But the third act was inevitable. In January 2016, after a manhunt involving electronic surveillance, informants and a notorious interviewer with the actor Sean Penn that helped reveal his location, Guzman was recaptured in Los Mochis in Sinaloa. In 2017, he was extradited to the United States to face federal charges. Then the U.S. trial and life sentence. Guzman's trial in Brooklyn in 2019 was one of the most extensive in U.S. history, revealing the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel. Jurors heard testimony about bribes to Mexican presidents, elaborate smuggling methods, and murders ordered personally by Guzman. The evidence included encrypted BlackBerry messages, in, intercepted calls, and insider witnesses. He was convicted on all counts: drug trafficking, money laundering, weapons charges, and sentenced to life plus 30 years in the U.S. federal supermax prison in Colorado. Unlike Mexico, there would be no tunnels this time. Beyond the legend, the structural factors of why does El Chapo's story matter beyond sensational headlines? Because it reveals the intersection of poverty, weak institutions, and global demand. Guzman was not a singular genius operating in a vacuum. He was a product of a system where rural disenfranchisement, institutional corruption, and American appetite for narcotics created a business environment for cartels to flourish. For decades, US and Mexican policy focused on high profile kingpins, yet each time a leader falls, the structure persists. After Guzman's arrest, the Sinaloa cartel continued under new leadership. This continuity underscores that cartels are not mere criminal gangs but economic networks responding to market forces. Myth versus reality. Popular culture paints Guzman as either a villain or folk hero. Narco corridors ballads celebrate his daring escapes, while Netflix series dramatize his life. Yet the reality for many Mexicans was far from glamorous. Communities caught between cartels and security forces mass graves, extortion, and fear. Guzman's fortune, estimated at more than $12 billion at its peak, was built on addiction, violence, and systematic instability. So, lessons from the rise and fall. If this were a corporate case study, El Chapo's saga would demonstrate these kind of things like logistics mastery, building tunnels, diversifying routes, maintaining redundancies, brand management, cultivating an image as a protector of locals while crushing rivals, risk management, bribery as insurance, compartmentalizing operations, constant mobility. But the same traits that fueled his rise also ensured his fall. Overconfidence, expanding communication networks, which left digital traces all and increased attention from US agencies made him vulnerable. No empire lasts forever when it rests on violence and secrecy. So, where things stand out. Now, in ADX Florence, America's most secure federal prison, Guzman lives in a near total isolation. His cell about 7 by 12 feet, with meals passed through a slot, limited human contact, and virtually no chance of escape. For a man who once commanded thousands and crossed borders at will, it's a final reversal. Yet, even from behind bars, his legend persists. Younger traffickers invoke his name. Songs and documentaries continue the structural problems that enabled his rise. Poverty, demand for drugs, corruption still exists. This is why his story is less about one man and more about an entire system of shadow economies. And final thoughts, El Chapo's trajectory mirrors a paradox. The same forces that create global business titans then can create global criminals. Networks, logistics, branding, risk hedging, these are not inherently illegal skills, but when applied to a black market commodity, as addictive and profitable as narcotics, they produce a form of power that rivals governments. In telling this story, we're not glorifying Guzman, we're mapping a phenomenon that shaped two nations' security policies, altered the global cocaine trade, and left an imprint on culture from corridos to Netflix. The boy who sold oranges in La Tuna became a kingpin who could outwit governments until he couldn't. And in that arc lies the enduring tension between crime, capital, and control. Thank you for listening. And if you like this video podcast, let me know. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. See you next time.